Welcome back to What Are Noobs with General Disturbance. This is an ISU-152. It's a Tier 8 Russian tank destroyer. It's located on the eastbourne of Studzianki and it's under the command of General Anonymous. Well, we've got 3 replays from General Anonymous and this is the first. The ISU-152 is basically a follow-on from the SU-152. But using the IS platform instead of the KB platform that the SU-152 utilised. So it's got a bit more armour in certain places, 90mm at the front, sides, and 60mm at the rear. It's got a big 152mm gun as its main armament, capable of 750 alpha and penetrating 260mm with standard, and with APCR it goes through to 92. And with the HE rounds, you can do 950 alpha and penetrate 90mm. So, yeah, you've got to watch out if you get hit by one of those rounds. And remember, of course, that even though they've nerfed HE, a thin-skinned vehicle such as a Leo or that AMX 1375 up there are liable to get penned because they've got such thin armour that they would easily die. Somebody knocked a tree down to the right there. So I think there is somebody over there. Now there's no Arty in this game, so we're not expecting an Arty round to come flying in. But we do have a Stura Mill alongside us. And remember, the Stura Mill has normally got a very, very good gun. This one I think's got the stock gun, which is the same as the Dicamax. So I don't think that's the same gun as the Scorpion. Well, first shot didn't do anything. So the gun is very decent. It's got a reasonably good speed, this vehicle, and reasonably good camo, but it's very poor armor really, and it's got a very long reload time. Standard reload 16.87 seconds. I think it gives you an idea. Ooh, and he hit the, well, it says that he actually hit the thing, but it didn't go through. And that's a GSOR, fairly thin armour on that. I suspect that the round might have hit the ground and then hit the GSOR afterwards. Skimmed over the ground. It's also got a fairly long aim time, as you're seeing here at the moment. Aim time is 3.26 seconds to dial in. And that's one third, as you know. T-3485. Oh, Amarak. That was a good one. Yeah, I like that. He wouldn't have known what hit him. He was out of the game before he realised what had happened. Oh dear, oh dear. It always gives a laugh to me whenever somebody does that. That Jackson is in grave danger of getting hit by the GSOR. So yeah, General Anonymous has decided if the Jackson's going to act as bait, he will hold his aim on that spot, because if the GSOR pops up, he's got a split second to try and take him out of the game before the Jackson dies from repeated rounds. There's the P43. Oh, big hit! That's a pen. 750. It's a high. 752 is a high roll. Unfortunately, we did lose the Jackson. The GSOR did get him, so obviously he was using the bush mechanic because he was never spotted. We really do need our Panzer IV Schmalten or TS5 to move up and get close to that copse so he can actually spot the enemy. But there's the GSOR. He actually pulled back a long way. Very long way. Okay, so that P43 is nursing his machine because obviously he's missing most of his hit points. We're going to have a look at this Leo. Can we get a shot on him? He's very thin armour. Yep, he's out the game. 588, nice shot. Took every hit point he had left. In the meantime, the TS5 managed to clock the AMX 1375 in that copse, and our Schmelton has finally moved up to do his job and try and spot those enemy. Our Porlac tank. Yep, he'd take a hit, and it's a low roll this time for 732, and it's the Sturry Mill who gets the kill. Well, the 105mm gun is useful. It's also fairly accurate. GSOR. Oh, yes, again, another hit, but a low roll, 662. Now, that's what should have happened the first time, but I'm pretty sure that round did hit the ground, bounce off the ground and hit the tank, and it just didn't bend. The T-32 in the centre. Now, it is an encounter game, and the gun was not accurate there. Now, they built 4,635 of these between November 43 and June of 45, and they had a pretty devastating effect upon German tanks whenever they hit them, because after all it is quite a big round. It's a 152mm round, and look at that, he's got another one. T-32 dies with 678. His total is now just under 4k, and he's got 3 kills. Lead scorer. That GSOR would have died, but for the fact that that long reload was holding him back. Now, it does actually have fairly long, or fairly low, I should say, depression. It's only got 6 degrees. But that's not stopping General Anonymous here from hitting the enemy very, very hard. Of course, if one of these actually fired in a city at an enemy tank, if it was ever doing urban combat, one round would be enough to shatter every window in the entire block, because it was that strong. I do believe that one of these actually did engage a German Panther, I think it may have been, or a Tiger II, and yes, every window pane from the entire neighbourhood went shattered, and there was just glass raining down everywhere. Oh, that was so unlucky. The shell actually went behind the bustle on the back of his turret. If it had contacted, I think that probably would have been an ammo rack. This game is further proof that Arty players do play other tanks. Yep, you often get people who say, oh, well, they only play Arty because they can't play tanks. No, we can play tanks. We just prefer Arty because we are specialists. We love really banging the enemy with an Arty round, but sometimes we like a little variety. And that's when we bring out the tank destroyers, the light tanks, the medium tanks, and oh, this is going to go so good. Oh! Oh! Oh no! That was a perfect target! Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. He'll get another chance. He's auto-aimed on to make sure of it this time. Unfortunately, he might... No, he's not going to take a round in return, but the Scorpion does take a hit for 781, which is a high roll, but... is he still there? Yes, he is. But he's not so happy now, and he might fire back in return. Oh! That would have cost him some hit points, and yes, he's out the game now. He was furious after that shot. You can tell he was desperately trying to close the distance as fast as he could, because he knew what was coming if he didn't. And despite the fact we're capping at the moment, there is an enemy P-43 Biz. Now, I wonder if that's the one we hit earlier in the game. I think it is, actually. He's missing most of his hit points, and he's trying to get a reset on our guys in the cap. There's only 2 enemies left, the P-43 and a Barask. As you know, the Barasks are dangerous, and the Barask is in sight now. We might have a shot at him. Remember, he's got 2 shots to fire back though, 105mm, and we've capped out, so it's academic now. 1 shot? Oh, well, he tried. He tried. Oh, we got hit. No, sir. You are not going to claim us. That would have been extremely funny if General Anonymous had taken out the Barras just after the game was won. Unfortunately, he almost took us out. Well, he got one round into us, but he wasn't going to claim our soul simply because he just didn't have enough time left to do it. It was a first-class tanker for General Anonymous in the ISU-152. He managed to get a demolition expert because he blew apart the T-3485M. He went up straight away. And he also got a fighter badge for getting at least 4 kills. Yes, he got 4 exactly. A fighter badge for, or fire perfect for doing more damage than the hit points for his own vehicle. And in that one, he managed to get the high caliber as well for dealing the most damage on the enemy. And his win 8 was 8,160, which is super income and quite a bit more. Let's have a look at team score. Well, he got the highest damage easily with 4,886. He was very close to getting 5k. If he had clocked that Barras, I think, yes, he would have gone way over 5k in damage. The second highest damage in the game actually went to the GSOR 1008, 3,123 hit points. And third highest damage was that Barras. He got 2,515. In fact, he would have got the fourth highest damage if that he hadn't clocked that shot on General Anonymous, because the Lorraine 40 ton had 2,105. So he would have pipped him just if he hadn't got that shot in at the end. When it came to kills, it was actually shared between the GSOR, the Lorraine 40 ton, and General Anonymous. They all had 4 kills apiece. And when it came to base XP, General Anonymous, with his hit points, easily scored the highest with 1,140. But surprisingly, that's not an ace tanker. You have to go a lot further if you want to get an ace tanker in this tank, because it is played by quite a lot of people. Well, they have a lot of fun derping enemies with that big gun. 871 went to the Panzer IV Schmalten, and 825 went to the Lorraine 40 ton. He fired 14 rounds in that game, got 9 direct hits on the enemy, 8 penetrations, damage of 4,886 hit points, of which 4,759 were at more than 300 meters. Long range sniper, it's a very good tank to do that. 1 hit received, it was a pen, that was from the Barras. He was getting close, but he wanted to get that last shot in if he could. And I think he was actually moving towards the cap area because he wanted to help them just in case the P-43 Biz was trying to get a reset. 7 enemy vehicles were damaged, 4 were killed, 216 hit points of damage assistance. He earned 57,002 credits from the game, and after repair and ammunition resupply took away 29,951 credits. 1,710 XP, 3,420 for completing a mission, 5,130 experience points altogether. Yeah, Soviet hammer. Well, it was pretty, it did sort of like hammer. It hammered window panes quite easily, but it did take out enemy tanks. They did really use this as indirect fire self-propelled gun. A lot of people think, oh, it's only a tank destroyer. No, these things, the Soviets actually did use them as indirect fire artillery, mobile artillery. And if you have watched the film White Tiger, then you'd notice that, because there's whole rows of these lined up shooting in the same direction, providing a barrage of fire. So yes, they are basically a self-propelled gun rather than a tank destroyer. Anyway, let's have a look at the armor. Okay, there's the armor. This is the collision model. I think it's easier for me to go through the collision model to actually show you where the armor is. 19mm at the front, as I said. It's not hugely angled, so only 113 with the angling. The upper plate, though, you can see 60mm, but very well angled there, which means that you actually come out with an effective armor quite a bit higher, 109. But of course, you're more than likely going to get a ricochet if a round hits that. There's the driver's viewport there, which is the same place as it would be on standard IS. Up here we've got the casement, and it's 90mm on the front of the casement. You wouldn't want to go for the mantlet because it's really thick armour there, 100mm, and yeah, it's very difficult to get through that. But on the front it's 90 with basically 96 with angling. It's a little easier to penetrate these if you go for the shoulders or the sides of the casement, where it's only 75mm thick. There's 75 at the rear, 75. It's when you get round the back, it's even lower, 60mm on the back of this tank. Back of the casement, 60mm as well. Engine deck is only 30, but you'd expect that because obviously you want to lower the armor on the areas where you're less likely to be hit. So these things are vulnerable to Arty. 30mm on top, so if you've got an Arty that can do 50mm of pen, this thing is vulnerable. Let's have a look at live. Okay, there's where the hitbox I should say. And you can see you don't want to aim for these parts here because obviously at this angle it would be very, very bad. But if you can actually get a shot, if you aim it, if they're angling like that, obviously it's not a tank like this is not going to angle because it needs to have its gun facing directly towards you and it's the pointy end. But if you can get them in the side, you're much more likely to get a pen. And of course, as I said, the rear of the vehicle is vulnerable. Let's have a look at modules. Okay, modules. Basically, as I said, it's an IS tank. We've got the driver up front on the right hand side. He's got a fuel tank and an ammo rack just next door to him. You've got the gunner directly behind the driver, and the tank commander is on the other pardon me. Tank commander on the other side of the vehicle next to the radio, and I think he's the radio operator as well. At the back of the vehicle you can see that there's two loaders facing each other and they're standing between two big ammo racks, the ready racks. So yes, either side of the casement, remember it's 75mm if I remember correctly there. So if you can get the sides of the vehicle, yes, you should be aiming for the rear of the casement to get the ammo rack. The engine is only got a fuel tank on one side, which is again unusual because normally they have it sandwiched between two fuel tanks. But it means that if you shoot through the right hand side, you're looking at it, then you will get the engine. If you shoot through the left hand side, you'll get a fuel fire. So if you do fire at this vehicle, it's ideal to go for the shoulders of the casement or the ammo rack. If you time it to try and get a fire, you won't get a fire unless you penetrate the vehicle and it's going to your right, as you're seeing now. Because if you fire the round in, it's not going to hit a fuel tank on the other side. It's going to hit the engine and stop. I mean, I know some of these shells would continue going. They just go straight through the engine one side and come out the other. But if you are trying deliberately to get a fire on this vehicle, it's not going to work unless you aim for the specific point where the fuel tank is, which is on the rear side of this vehicle. It's on the left hand side. On this side you have to aim for the casement. I should also say that actually on the T72 there's tools in the boxes on the outside on the right side as we're looking at it, and the fuel tank is on the left hand side, so it's actually something that they carried over into the modern T72 to have the fuel tanks down one side, the left hand side of the vehicle as you're looking at it. So if you're a gunner in a tank and you want to set fire to a T72, you aim for this side of the vehicle as you're looking at it, because that's where all the fuel tanks are. Just a tidbit of information which I think you might find useful. Anyway, that's where the modules are. Hope you enjoyed that replay. If you did, please give the video a like. Do subscribe to our channel. Leave a little comment down below because it feeds the algorithm. And remember, we've got another video coming up from General Anonymous very shortly, so stick around and you'll probably see something very interesting yet again. Thanks for watching.